Greetings. Thanks for joining us once again. We're now at the 270 level for Tesla, and the question is it 300, 325 next, or are we headed back down to the 200 to 230 range? I decided to change up here a little bit. I'm hoping that we can have you pick up some viewership. We're at the EV Go. As you can see, we're in a location that is a little windy, and I'm hopeful we'll be fine relative to our show. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Thanks once again for joining us. If this is your first time, welcome. If you're a repeat visitor, welcome back. We also want to thank our Patreon supporters. If you enjoy the show, would like better ideas on investing and trading, please take time to join us on Patreon. So there's a number of discussions that are going on for Tesla right now that we wanted to cover relative to, well, how is the stock doing? And what are the implications of some of the new news that's coming out on the company? So one of the phenomenons that we're heading into now is about a month and a half ago, as you'll notice, there was huge discussions about are we headed into a recession, and therefore everybody has to hunker down with, if you will, recession attitude to survive the recession as a company. The answer to that is it's not a bad idea to do that when we're recession-y headed, but if we're headed in the other direction, you really have to pivot yourself to a different mind frame for how the money might flow. So I was hoping to pull in some viewership of different cars that are in the charging zone here, and having non-Tesla vehicles be our background isn't as appealing as having the Tesla ones. So I wanted to today kind of concentrate on a concept that's called expansion of PE ratio. So there's a process that goes on where you're supposed to do a very simple number. What the number is calculate the growth rate of the company times the earnings, and that equals the stock price of the company. Well, that is a good thing. There's nothing wrong with those numbers. There's one problem with that. Look at where we are with Tesla right now. We're kind of running into a problem, which is the numbers we have in hand belie kind of where are we currently with our, if you will, situation. But the question is kind of where are we headed now, and how does that reflect in the stock price? So one of the notables lately is, if you look at CNBC, which we look at a lot, there's a discussion about the fact that there are a number of stocks that are overbought, like Tesla, like some of the other high flyers out there. You know, a lot of the folks in the AI space are getting that same label. Now, the question that comes up is sort of, how is this going to look going forward, and can you validate buying a stock that's thought to be overbought? Well, one of the interesting phenomenons of how analysts operate is they engage in something called revenue and profit numbers heading into next year and the following year. So one of the ways you can look at, can they justify a higher stock price, is, are there any valid growth in revenue, growth in profit numbers that can validate perhaps a higher number for Tesla stock price? And there are a couple of ways I think this is working for Tesla. The first one, I think, which is really important heading into earnings, is that there's something called forward PE ratio. So yes, there's a PE ratio currently, and Tesla has sort of exceeded what the profit and revenue numbers should have been. The next question mark is, what does profit and earnings look like next year and the following year? Well, one of our viewers sort of hit us with a note where there's one analyst that's predicting that 73, if if we have an optimal process of transition to most, like 80 or 90% of the EV charging that's not at home going to Tesla, that equals about a $73 stock price is what the analysts are arguing. So the question that comes up is, if this actually occurs, what are the implications of this? Well, obviously it means a higher stock price for Tesla, because you also have to add in what the growth rate is and profit and revenue that are on just the cars or on battery storage and other power products that Tesla is doing. So I wanted to bring this up today because there's a bunch of different ways you can look at Tesla's numbers and start to determine, are we at the apex of its rise? Are we kind of in the middle, etc.? There's another phenomenon that I think is really interesting to watch, which is once you start looking out a year, maybe two, and you have good reasons why the stock should rise to those levels, we start to get into a very interesting space that I think is worth the time to study and understand. What that is the fact that there are a lot of companies out there that have to invest money. And their goal is to target the companies that are growing and showing nice profit, but they also have to sort of expand what they're doing with their PE ratios in some ways. And this is one example. But the other thing is that I think that because Tesla's story is so strong, you might end up with the stock price running past what most people would be comfortable with, simply because you kind of want to target entities that are able to establish a good story and maintain it, which I think Tesla definitely has been doing. And I think it's awesome to see them bringing on all these other charging customers, because they can make a great deal of money off of what they're doing going forward. So I'm in essence arguing that what's going to happen, and usually happens as we transition somewhat into a bull market away from a now non-bull market, is you'll have a situation happening where there is a willingness to pay higher prices for a Tesla or a Microsoft or a Facebook or even an Nvidia, rather than just say, I'm actually trying to sneak some images in here, because one of the things that's going on is that there's a phenomenon on charging where, for example, right now in the DC area, it's about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And as you'll notice, there's one Tesla charging and a whole bunch of empty charging bays. And the question that's coming up is, will there be a lot of Tesla owners inconvenienced? And I really think that most of the owners currently charge at home. When they're on the road, they're likely to use charging facilities like this. But it's definitely an issue that is worth monitoring, how inconvenienced will owners become as we transition into this new process for Tesla. And as you can see, there's only one Tesla out here, but there are a couple of other makes using EVgo to charge their vehicles. So in general, what I'm wanting to close with today is, don't be surprised if Tesla generates some numbers that are higher than expected. Excuse me, how's your experience been with EVgo? Do you like it?
Yeah, just some locations aren't
Broken down?
reliable.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, one of the issues that's going on is there are a lot of EVgo folks who have been experiencing unreliability of locations, which is what was shared with the owner. I guess it's a Hyundai, nice looking car, but hard if you can't find a charging space for it. So, anyway, I want to close out today with the general idea that don't be surprised if Tesla's numbers are higher than expected. And the reason for that higher than expected number is PE expansion. In a bull market, there's a lot more willingness to expect everything to keep rising. Therefore, the PE rises that people are willing to pay for. But the flip side of that is that when we're in a recession predicted, et cetera, that's when you get a real contraction of the PE ratio and therefore lower numbers. So we kind of wanted to bring this up today because I think we're in a power zone for Tesla right now. And I just wanted to throw this out there because we're, I think, headed over 300 a share. Any rate, just a reminder, don't forget your 25 leg lifts. I also wanted to encourage you to consider both ear and eye exams once a year as you age. And if possible, don't eat within 4 hours of going to bed. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Just au revoir, le hit road, hoda hafez, sadazuche, ni hao ma, kambawa, namaste. In Jamaica, we say enough respect, walk good man. Have a great day, and bye for now.